Welcome to our, we call it Fireside Chat, but we don't have any fire, but we have a site and we have a chat and we have a talk. With me is Lars, you know him from the previous talk, Head of Development. On the left side I have Jan, who is the CEO. On the paper I'm also CEO, but in fact Jan does the job. So we will have some informal talk this evening. We have a couple of guests from the community, from Tribe 29. I need to take breath a bit before we can start. I want to thank you for taking part. We have I think we had more than 300 visitors previously in the stream, and it's really great. Last year we had also the first time the online conference, but last year it was out of necessity that we needed to switch to online because of the Corona situation. We needed to convert the conference during a couple of weeks from on-site to online, and this year we had a bit more time to prepare for this conference, and one of the things we prepared is this camera setup, which you have seen in the intermediate screen. We have 7 cameras, we have 9 monitors, couple of HDMI switches and routers and audio mixers and everything in order to make a good experience. Also we can now bring in guests via Zoom, which we will do a couple of times this evening, and I hope you like it. How was your feeling about the conference?
It's too hot here.
Until now.
We're in the top of the building here, and the sun is shining on this floor the whole day, and it's way too hot here. But the rest of the conference is great, I think.
Yeah, I mean outside it's 26 degrees, which would be nice, but we have to close all of the windows because of the light. Otherwise we wouldn't have perfect light. So that's one of the reasons why it's very hot here.
Yep.
But I think we can cool us later with a bit of nice and shiny beer.
Maybe to start the day, we have a new leadership position, the Chief Beer Officer. Yeah. And since I messed up the beer making 3 years ago, we hired someone now, that's Martin, to kick off the evening. And we'll try to do what normally the mayor of Munich would do on the Oktoberfest.
Wow.
He kicks off the Oktoberfest by hitting
in the other direction, please.
So we hope that everyone who's on European time zone does the same now. And if you are an Australian time zone or an US time zone, that's up to you. But obviously, it's part of the spirit of the Feierabend beer.
Yeah, and in the first conference where Jan was CEO, I actually tricked him into opening the beer that could not be opened.
Yes.
Some of you probably were there, and he tried a couple of minutes, I think for 5 minutes, then I tried shortly, and then we gave up both. And at the end, something was missing in the barrel, actually.
It's like in these TV shows where you're somehow tricked into a situation where you get wet.
Yeah.
No, it works.
Chris, I've won. Chris, can we get the chat on this monitor again? It's this is a great time for this monitor to work because I've no laptop and I want to get the pulse check from you all.
That's good,
where's my camera? This camera from the community.
So it's a complex physical process of getting enough
But
air
Martin,
inside.
we didn't want milk. We want actual beer. Is it possible?
Just a second.
Yeah. He's professional.
No. Maybe we already got some tips about opening this.
Yeah, let's see the chat. Christian Wirtz.
Getting
That's the thing with many beer units. Okay. So what shall we do to get more beer out of the barrel? Chat, please help now.
It's not getting better. No.
We don't get air into the battle.
We have to take some air out.
It's coming. Nice.
No.
Okay, that's enough air. Yeah. This one we don't use.
That's yours.
Yeah, it's the beer streaming service, what we have here.
The first beer is always bad.
But while we do that, maybe we start with you, Lars. And we reflect a bit on Checkmk 2.0, which you just presented to the entire audience. And obviously you are a Checkmk user to some degree yourself, testing it out, seeing that everything works. What were your favorite features from a user perspective in what you do from the 2.0?
I really enjoy the new setup search because it dramatically can change the way you configure Checkmk.
And it was a feature I had to fight for very hard that we get it into the 2.0 because everyone said, no, it's still time, we cannot manage it, too difficult. And I insisted on getting this.
And in the moment where you said, no, you can't, you won't make it, and you won't make it performant and so on, in that moment,
I said
we did it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Feature number 1, so the second one.
That's I think one of the most important ones. The second one, what's
the main menu navigation, the new navigation system.
the navigation in total is pretty good. But I think also the details of the navigation, the in-page navigation, which has been a huge pain, especially in some status views where you had a lot of buttons,
all these buttons.
like 30 buttons on the top line, which no one could use, are now systematically sorted into topics and are now, I think, manageable for the user.
I think our beer is ready now.
Martin delivered on the job.
Nice.
Yes, the chief.
Forward
The
this.
CFO, you said.
CFO.
The chief fuss opener, which fuss meaning barrel.
Third one.
So thanks for coming. I hope lots of people cheer in with their beers as well. Cheers,
So,
Mathias.
thanks.
We haven't drunken yet, so this is Corona conform. And
Zum Wohl.
Anyway, everyone is tested. I think most of these people here are vaccinated, at least once or some even twice. So
Yes.
we are
second question,
pretty
Lars.
safe.
What did you actually spend your time with on 2.0?
Yeah, I think the most time-intense part of the 2.0 was the Python 3 migration. And yeah, it was mostly understanding what we actually have to do, what we would have to do in smaller parts of the software, but also what you have to do if it scales to like 800,000 lines of code with a lot of code which has been there for years, which is maybe also untested and not type checked and so on. And we needed to figure out what in general are the problems with such a migration, and especially in our situation, which tools we need to add in order to get the migration done in a good way.
And there was always some discussion, can we release 2.0 earlier, sort of with part of the migration done, part not, but we, as I understand it, decided early on not to do it that way. Why was that? Why did we want to finish everything before releasing?
During building the 2.0, we had, I think, 3 projects which we could not split into different steps easily. This was the Python migration. It was also the rebuild of the microcore, fetcher and checker architecture, and also the user experience. These were 3 huge projects which all had to be finished to some degree for us to be able to release a version. So it was good to take the time to finish it.
Did you ever have sleepless nights that we wouldn't deliver on the promise, or?
Oh, I don't have sleepless nights because of the schedule. I have sleepless nights because of the content of of the things we have to change.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the problematic these things where we had to solve, we always managed to do it in some or the other way, and we find good solutions for us, for the developers, for the process, and also for the users.
I like the Debian way. It's done when it's done.
Yeah, we need to find some not that extreme way from a product point of view.
And if we think about your time now, so we've basically released Checkmk 2.0. We've stabilized the issues of first release or first major customers moving on to the new version. Now we're moving towards the future again a bit, about what we talk about tomorrow. What are you spending your time with now?
I think most of the time at the moment is spent with organizing the team, the development team. Some weeks ago, we started with reorganizing the teams into 2 feature project teams, which are hopefully able to be focused on the development topics for the 2.1 after the conference now. And if you do such a reorganization with a team of around 20 people, there's always a lot of things which have to be thought about in advance. Then you do the transition with the teams, and then you see what you have missed to think about, and then you need to communicate and organize these things.
Yes.
And that's what I'm currently doing.
If we think about the team growing, how are we growing the team? Are we hiring the same type of developers? Are we changing roles? Are we changing processes? It's a natural evolution that we have Scrum of Scrums and things like that.
Yeah, I think the time where we tried to hire developers with administrator background are long gone now. For the last 1 or 2 years, we mostly hired general Python developers or native developers, for example, for the Windows agent. And at the moment, we are more focusing on more specialized developers to address some needs we have. For example, in the test automation, we hired already 2 experts in this area to build up our capabilities there, to improve the quality assurance, test automation of Checkmk. And we also hired 1 developer for the security part, to be able to push the security aspects of Checkmk.
Maybe with the SolarWinds incident that everyone knows about, obviously security in the monitoring space has reached a new consciousness. What are we doing on the product side and also on the development side to address that?
I think with Checkmk, we always had, from an architectural point of view, we always had the security in mind. We designed many things of Checkmk by actually featuring in the security, by building the connection between systems in a secure way. Like, for example, the agent to Checkmk API, not a single byte can be sent from the Checkmk server to the normal agent. So this is a barrier in terms of security where you cannot inject data to the monitored system.
This is something people forget, that the monitored system must protect itself from the monitoring server. It cannot trust the monitoring server. And that's something that other systems, I think, don't have in mind, because if the monitoring server is hacked, you would get access to all of your systems, because it's the one and single system that has access to everything, even more than the backup solution. So it's very crucial that the agent does not trust the monitoring system. That's the way we build it from scratch, so the agent does not take any data.
Yeah, I think from the feature point of view, you were always not far away from dropping such kind of barriers, because you want to have automatic updates, seamless deployments of versions, of plugins, of configurations, and so on. But we really try to keep these security barriers, if you want to name it like this, and stick to our philosophy here. And in other parts of Checkmk, we are trying to make it better than we did before. For example, when we speak about the agent communication, the transport of the agent data, it's normally done in clear text, and we want to improve it by, out of the box, making it encrypted. But that's not easy to achieve, because we have to keep the usability and security aspects in mind and balance both.
And it's part of the roadmap tomorrow to discuss that.
Yeah.
And in terms of vulnerability assessment, so the kind of general things we build in a development process to ensure it's a secure system, Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, during I think the last 3 years, we improved a lot our automated system, our CI, by introducing linting tools and so on for preventing bugs, but also some of the aspects of these tools are preventing security issues, like they protect you from using insecure functions. But we can also take this further by always have in mind which third-party editions we rely on. Checkmk is including a lot of dependencies. We have Python libraries which we ship with Checkmk. We have native libraries. We have JavaScript libraries we include. And what we can make better is to continuously monitor them for insecure dependencies to be automatically alarmed in the moment there's a problem in a dependency, for example. Other things we could do is to systematically analyze some APIs, maybe also the REST API we've built. There are tools out there which can scan these APIs, which can do some fuzzy testing on it to find bugs, to find security issues. Injection issues can also be tested on our web interface. That's something we can automate and we want to improve with the new colleagues we hired. And yeah, also in, I think in the implementation, we can do better in parts of the software to systematically prevent injections, cross-site scripting attacks, and so on.
Maybe in terms of quality, we talked a little about hiring new roles for quality. We also changed for 2.0 the way our consulting team actually works together with development for the more complex parts of understanding whether the system actually makes sensible outputs. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think what we learned very well through the finalization of the 2.0 is that our consultants, which are continuously working with Checkmk in their customer projects during support, that they can do a very good job in testing the relevant parts of Checkmk. And they have, even if we don't think about quality assurance, if we think about features, UX and so on, they can also play an important role by having some kind of user perspective on the things we plan, on the things we develop. And it's always good to work together, also in the moment we work on new features.
Maybe last question for the last round. You started as employee number 1, and now we are sort of 10 years in the making. I think you both had your 10th anniversary last year or the year before or so. How has the role changed from being the first employee to heading up this team of 20 engineers?
Yeah, I'm even not sure what the official description of my job is. I think it's Linux consultant, and that's what I really did at the beginning. We were working on Linux in the data center projects, integration projects with Linux-based infrastructure. We were in most of the...
You always were programming. You already had the Nagios project running, so you were actually a kind of software developer.
Yeah.
Without that, I think it wouldn't have made sense, because the projects we made at that time involved programming in some kind of way. And
when I started, Checkmk was some kind of already there, but it was something...
was the reason why we met in the first place.
Yeah. It was live status, in fact.
Yeah, but I just made live status after Checkmk, so I showed Checkmk at the Nagios conference in Nuremberg. Yeah. That was the reason why I was there, and as a second project I had this live status in my pocket, so to say, and I wanted to address you because I had already tried out to make a Nagios connector with live status because I hated this database method.
The NDO.
Yeah, actually, at that time I was making Nagios courses, 1-week courses with Nagios, setting up Nagios, And it took 1 week just to get the system up and running. We have not talked about monitoring. Something we in the Checkmk courses we make in 5 minutes was 1 week of lessons. And then some people said they want Nagwiz, and I always found several reasons why Nagwiz is useless. But in fact, I was tedious of setting it up. It was 1.5 days of training to get it up and running, because you needed to set up the MySQL database, get everything wrong, up and right, and it was pain in the ass.
And everyone was going through this pain. That was not only you.
And when I had this live status connected and worked, then I switched over and said, wow, Nagwiz, you need this Nagwiz. It's really the greatest tool.
Yeah. And that's the reason why we met. And I think we learned that we can work together very productive by building this Nagwiz and live status connection.
Yeah, we had a hacking session at least once in my office nearby. And you rehacked my hack, and it worked at the end, and it was fun to work with you.
Yeah.
And if we take that in stages, first 3 years of the company, next 3 years, third 3 years, how did that change?
Yeah, I think for the first, I don't know how long it was, like 2 or 3 years, we were still doing these consultant projects and always using Nagios, Checkmk, Live Status, and so on.
And also other tools like automatic setup with Kickstart from Red Hat.
And at one point, we realized that Checkmk is really interesting for a huge user base. And so we started building on OMD, on the deployment solution. Then we somehow learned that it would be a good idea to support to offer support contracts. And with that point, we slightly went away from the consulting part and went in the direction of actually building the product.
Part.
And at that time, I was mostly developing internally, building Checkmk, working on features on my own.
Sometimes you still did consulting projects, but it turned out to be a bad idea, because I remember once it was a company near the Bodensee. They hired you for 5 days. After 2 days, everything was running up and working.
Sorry.
So they said it doesn't make any sense that you're here, but then they had 3 days already paid left for phone support, which is
very long time.
Completely awful, because it takes months to finish this. So
I'm actually a bad consultant because I'm too
you
fast.
were too fast.
But then we somehow made the transition to focusing our time, Matthias' time, my time on building the product. And we were in the stage of, it's the early startup stage where you want feature output. Our goal was to build a feature-complete monitoring system. And
Though feature completeness never exists.
But
the point.
compared to other tools in the ecosystem, we used a completely different approach, because all the other tools in the German Nagios community were working on some pieces of the machine, and they always left it open to you to integrate them. And with OMD and with Checkmk, we always had the other idea of using our knowledge, our expertise to build it into the product.
Yeah.
And that's also a fundamental idea of Checkmk.
The grand unified monitoring system.
So we went this path of building this system. And so we had some years where we were extremely focused on the features. And I think that this was one phase, and at some point we had a good feature coverage with the user interface, the configuration interface, reporting system, dashboarding, availability, and so on. And so we slowed down feature development and cared about building up the rest of the machine, working on quality, building up a team to keep up with the growing user base. And I personally always wanted to personally push it. It was basically the reason why I joined Matthias, because I always wanted to have an impact.
Yeah, we had an impact
on that, what we do, solve actual real problems for the users. That was always something I wanted to do. And
we had short release cycles. I remember at the beginning we had releases while riding the suburban train, and with a mobile phone made a release.
we once had a hacking session in Berchtesgaden, and we went back from that, and after checking out from the hotel on the Autobahn, we did the release.
Yeah,
Continuous deployment.
Yeah,
is
that's
best,
absolutely
the
innovative.
early adopters.
yeah, it was good.
And when did the enterprise edition emerge as the business model that carries the company to some degree?
Oh, I
Because-
don't know when it was exactly.
The first building pillar was the microcore, because that was the first feature that made a distinction between the enterprise.
But didn't we have the support contracts before?
We had the support contracts, but they were about the normal open source
Yeah, okay.
version. So
Yeah,
it was
that's right.
not really a product; it was a support contract.
Because you shifted from a
And then
professional services model to a software
Yeah, it's-
company model. Huh?
I mean, we built all this monitoring system, and the last remaining part was this monitoring core, because the Nagios core was great to be there, but it had many deficiencies. The main one was that it was impossible to implement new features myself. I tried it, but the code is totally fucked up. So it's even if you make the smallest change, you want to make the smallest change, you are getting crazy. So I took the chance to make an own core and also chose a completely different architecture, which was very fast and which allowed the configuration change online, so without downtime of the monitoring, which I think is very crucial for a professional productive system.
And how did you come up with the architecture? Did you sit down yourself thinking about the problems? Did you
I don't know.
joint
I'm
drawings
a
on the
kind of
whiteboard?
inventor all my life. So if I have a good, I mean, the most difficult part is find a good problem. If you found a problem and are a good engineer, you can find a good solution. And that
I think we
understood the problem. And
also had technical reasons for choosing this architecture. Because we already had features the microcore is instrumenting, built in Python, in Checkmk, in the Checkmk check engine, and so on. And we needed a solution which worked with Nagios core and the monitoring core. So we needed to find a compatible approach, some kind of.
yes. But that was basically the starting point of the Enterprise Edition, because the microcore was not just our own core, it was many times faster, and we could scale into bigger installations, and also we could implement features very easily now, because we had ownership of the code and knowledge. So that enabled us to actually solve the problems of our customers much better.
And then we basically on the phase, now we have a new business model, a software business model, we have a growing team. What happened then?
Okay, so what happened then? We have, I think, a long time of the development of the company and Checkmk. We were continuously lagging behind our customer base, and that was rapidly growing while the team kept like a constant size. We were struggling a little bit with keeping up, and then we were at some point we were making a huge step. When you joined, we made huge fundamental changes to the way we built the company, and we scaled up pretty fast, which was also very challenging, but which was really important for us to sustain the development of the customer base and the development of the software. And
I was never the guy to scale up a company. I was the guy to invent a microcore, but scaling up a company and making it professional, it's really something I've never learned, and
it was
also wasn't willing to do actually, because it's pain in the ass.
No, you also said I want to have a small but fine company.
Yeah.
That is another philosophy, and that can also be okay. But if you grow with the product and the customer base, that's not working out.
I've learned that there's no value as such in having a big company. It just, if you have many good people, it gives you opportunities. It gives you the power to do something. You know, you have the people, you have maybe the money to do something. But other than that, having a big company is no advantage to having a small one. It's actually a disadvantage. You have lots of disadvantages to having a big company. You have much more compliance problems. You have communication problems. You have steady office movement and everything. So a small company is better than a big one, but it's not so powerful.
Yeah.
So the key point is growing it, but in a way that it's worth growing.
Yeah.
Not as a...
Yeah, I think we are currently doing this, and we are still trying to keep up. And I think we're now with this history lesson. We are now at sometimes in the present, and what our current challenge is, especially in the development team, is to building out and to spread the knowledge. We still have a lot of historical knowledge, a lot of special knowledge in some small number of heads.
Yeah.
And our challenge is actually to distribute this.
Which is very difficult because the idea was, for example, Andreas knows many things and is one of the master brains. And we thought that we can build up new people to have the same level as Andreas. But meanwhile, he has grown much faster even. So he knows himself much more than 5 years ago.
Yeah, sure.
So it's very hard to catch up for everyone.
Yeah, but
it's impossible.
We managed to do this, and for the developers, it's now very challenging to get challenged with the new parts of the software they haven't written on their own. They need to dig into the functionality because they are not the users. Most of them are not even have never even administrated a Linux system.
Yeah.
They need to understand all these realities of the users, and besides that, they have to understand the code and the things that have been written like 5 or 8 years ago, whatever, and then they have to work on it in a way where they break not so much.
Yeah.
So partially the first thing they have to do is to restructure the code so it can be tested. That they can add type hinting, which we now doing in our daily business, which we years ago didn't do. So the whole code or parts of the code are not prepared for that. So they have to be very careful with the part of software they actually don't know in detail. And I think it's a very challenging part of software development.
I think it's the normal life of a software developer.
But challenging.
No software has a code base that's younger than 1 year if the company is 10 years old. It simply not exist. If you are successful, then you have a big code base, an old code base.
Sure. But our situation is that we have to go forward with that, and so we have to do what we currently do.
I think at the 10th conference, we make a contest. Who finds the oldest part of code in Checkmk? The oldest line of code that hasn't been changed since the very beginning.
But moving the line and reformatting it does not count.
White spaces do not count.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe to you, Mathias, because obviously you were the inventor of many things.
Yeah.
And you always had a certain philosophy how you think about what's actually important and what's not important that made you do things differently than the industry did it, which helped the product a lot. Can you tell us a little bit about your inventor philosophy, how you think about solving a problem?
I think there are two aspects. One aspect is if a customer tells you that he has a problem, he doesn't tell you. He tells you a proposed solution. And then you have to read between the lines, get into a dialogue and understand the actual problem and then suggest another solution. That's a basic problem that the customer actually cannot really. It's really hard for them to tell the actual problem.
What's
and then,
the root of the problem?
Yeah, and then you need to find a solution that's better and that also fits other customers, and that's important. And the other thing is, I think there are two types of guys. The one always looks how successful other people in company do things and try to copy it or learn from it. I think that's mainly your style, and it's very successful because you see, oh, this company has great success. What do they that we don't do, and try to get which can we adapt for us, which makes sense. And I've never done this. I was not interested in how other people do things, simply because it was not so interesting, because I'm an inventor. So I have these Scheuklappen, you say in Germany, like the horses, they shouldn't look left and right, because only then you get too distracted.
To a new, and you get
So
to new solutions.
If you listen too many other music, it's very hard to compose your own music, because everything is going in your head what the others do. So you have to a certain degree, have to be blind what others do, and simply look what's the best solution for that.
You need to have the right tool for the right job.
If you're the only if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Something like that. So you have to be a bit blind, left and right, and believe. And sometimes you make complete mistakes and invent something that already exists and that's better somewhere else, and so on. But at the end, it's a bit of the Checkmk gene that some say it's the not invented here syndrome in a negative way, but I think it's also positive that we do our own solutions. Another example was this library for the prediction. We did these predictive graphs, and there was a nice library for computing something, and it turned out that this library saves lots of hours of development, but it's another 240 megabytes to install. So the actual Checkmk was, I think, 80 megabytes, and this library is 240. And it saved our developer maybe 10 or 20 hours, and I think it generated 10 or 20,000 hours at our customers to install these packages.
Yeah,
and at the end, it turned out that it was quite easy to make an own solution.
Yeah.
So
And maybe another interesting history lesson. Back in the days when we haven't met, I was active in the German Nagios community.
Yeah.
And the Nagios portal, and working on Nagios and so on. And I think I haven't even joined the Nagios project, and we were discussing in the community that to solve the NDO problem, we would need to have some kind of API built into the Nagios core. We were already thinking about something like a live status, and we simply were not able to do, because we mostly were administrators with some kind of scripting and basic C development knowledge and so on, and we were not able to do this. And suddenly you appeared, and you built it.
Yeah, because I was not an administrator, I was more a developer.
Yeah.
So.
And so you really saw what we also saw, and you solved it in your way. That's fine, but you solved the problem we had.
I hacked it. I totally hacked it into the Nagios.
Yeah. Yes.
But it worked.
Yeah.
A real software developer wouldn't have done that. He would have stacked 10 layers. He would have said, oh, in a once per billion case, it's possible that there's something wrong, and we need to have locking. And 5 years later, he would have the first API.
But we really had these problems at some point, so we had to solve these IT problems or development problems.
Of course, if you have more power and everything,
of locking and so on, especially in larger systems, we have had these troubles. But for the first moment, you solved the problem, and that was good.
And in those installations, at those times, it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
It was more stable than the database approach. Anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
Maybe one question from it's more a comment from Philip. Philip says, speaking as a free user, I covered the microcore. We are trying to move to distributed monitoring more, but our original server still struggles with fork overhead.
Yeah, that's Nagios.
We had discussions to switch the microcore into the raw edition, but we didn't do it. You want to explain why?
That's a
tough question.
It's also a political question. I mean, it's also a question about money. Let's be straight. You know, we are an open source company, and we make software for open source people and everyone. But also, we need really to finance our software team. So we need this enterprise edition, and it's always a balance which features should go into the open source version, which goes into the enterprise version. And yeah, it's from a technical point of view, I would like to put this into the Raw edition. But I must say, those who pay for the Enterprise edition also support us and finance actually the software development.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's a kind of giveaway from us to them as a thank that they support us. You could see it also that way.
You know, I think as an open source company, you can in the end have two business models, primary ones. Either you sell software or you sell services. The Red Hat model is to sell services, and most open source companies nowadays sell software. And so we always need to balance what's in the Raw edition and what's in the Enterprise edition, and we want to advance both. I think we talked also a lot about the features that we put into the Raw edition and things we downported from the Enterprise edition to the Raw edition to make sure it's always a great open source product. But we didn't find a way to downsize the microcore in an open source style way that would not dilute the difference. And we need the difference to fund the company that funds the developers that build the product. And that's, I think, why so far it is the decision as it is, although we actually all would love to change it. But we need to change it in an open source way, and so far we haven't found.
We'll see. Future will bring new ideas, and
exactly.
I mean, we want to build Checkmk in a way that services are not so important. The perfect product would be that you don't need any support contract, everything works, everything is simple. So that's the direction we move towards. So we cannot build a service company. We are building a software company. Yes. So I think it has no future to work with services. The future is that you don't need any service, in my opinion.
Maybe that's a good switch to come to a second part of the evening. In the end, all of what we do is also for you as a user base, Raw edition or Enterprise edition. And so we brought a couple of people from the community into this discussion. And they will be on Zoom, so we try to bring them in from the outside. And I think the first person to join, let's see if that works, is Faye, who is our community manager. Hey, Faye.
Hi, Faye.
Hi, Faye.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. So I think many people of you will know Faye because she's frequently posting on Slack and in our forum, and she's the greatest person to have as a community manager, just in terms of content and spirit. So thumbs up for Faye. And maybe, Faye, you tell us first a little bit about the community that we're having, and then we can jump into what type of communities activities we have planned this year.
Right. So people in our community are not just Checkmk users. They also contribute to make Checkmk the best monitoring tool around. So what I mean with that is that some people contribute code on GitHub, they publish extension packages, help other people use Checkmk, for example, answer questions in the forum, and now they also help translate the software. So for example, right now the forum is the best place to gather the community, and right now we have like over 3,000 users in the forum.
Mm-hmm.
And for the exchange, around 270 people signed up. They have an account there, and there are around 300 packages published. And on GitHub, there are around 116 contributors. Okay, maybe 30 of them, or 30 to 40 are Checkmk employees, but then the rest, they are volunteer contributors who send pull requests, send bug fixes for Checkmk. And we also recently kind of soft launched our translation program, our localization program. It's on translate.checkmk.com. So as of now, there are 23 people signed up there, and around 9 languages are now available. Some of them machine translated, and some already started contributing suggestions to improve our translations and make Checkmk available in different languages.
And if we talk a little bit about the different things, so translation is the newest topic. What did we do, and what can I do if I want to contribute to having Checkmk in my local language?
Right, so right now we have translate.checkmk.com. So it's built using Weblate. It's an open source localization tool. So there you can simply make an account, find the language of your choice, and suggest a translation for something. You can see there some things are already translated, but then maybe you have a better idea on how it can be translated in your native language. So simply leave a suggestion there and we can approve it and it can be made available to Checkmk.
And is that part of Checkmk 2.0? Is that part of our master and will be in the next release? Where can I actually find that?
Right, so now actually you can download it as an MKB file on the Exchange. We have introduced our first version of the language packs, so you can try it out and people can also test it out if there's anything going wrong when they use the translation.
And then you said we have the Checkmk Exchange. Now we have more than 3,000 forum users, much fewer in the Exchange. So maybe you can expand a little bit about what this Exchange actually is. What can I find on the Exchange as a user if I haven't used it yet?
So there you can find extensions or plugins to extend your Checkmk installation. So these are all contributed by our community members. So some of them, maybe they're contributed by employees, but then a majority of them are contributed by the community.
Then I think we started community calls last year. We have an agenda of calls. How can I participate in a call? How, if I actually want as a community member to be part of a call or present something, how can I do that?
Right, so we started last year, and maybe we started around maybe just 40 people joined, but then our very recent call, we have like over 140 people joined the call. And we have been talking about the latest releases on Checkmk. So for example, the previous one was about Checkmk 2.0 and it got a lot of positive response. So now we want to make it more regular. And I think it would be great if also the community members can also take the stage to talk about what they're working on with Checkmk, what projects are they working on around Checkmk. So we also want it to be made by the community for the community. So yeah, so if people have any topic ideas on what we can talk about on the community call, or they want to speak at the community call, so just reach out to me on the forum.
Very good. And then the third topic is, which is a bit of a sore point, is our pull requests. Yeah, so we did a lot, I think, last year in setting up pull requests, enabling a CI on GitHub, etc. And then we suspended them for a while. Now, you obviously would love to have them back, but maybe you can explain why we suspended them.
Right, that's actually kind of unfortunate that we had to do that we had to suspend it for now, right? But then it was just that with 2.0, and which is our biggest release yet, right? The workload was just too high. And we don't want to disappoint both our 2.0 users and our GitHub contributors, because GitHub contributors spend a lot of time with their pull requests, and it would just really be bad if we don't take time to review them. So it would be bad because they spend a lot of time. So right now, it's best that we suspend it, but then we will have it back soon when our workload gets better, and hopefully that will be very soon.
Exactly. I think the key message, it's not a permanent stop. We had to hold it temporary because the inflow was larger than we could actually solve, and so the waiting times kept rising and rising. And so now we need to lower the backlog, and then we are back online.
Yep, exactly.
Very good. Faye, shall we move to our next community member?
Yes, I'm so excited to have them here.
Exactly. So we actually have two of very well-known community members, Robert and Andreas. Maybe Robert, are you online? Can we see your face?
Yes. Hi.
Yes.
Hi, Robert.
Hi.
Something is burning behind you.
Exactly. So first of all, thanks a lot for joining. Also, I think you hosted an API workshop today. Thanks a lot for doing that, and I think we talk about that later on as well. Maybe because you're actually a real community contributor, I think I asked you that once, but why are you doing that?
Because it's fun, really. Working with Checkmk is not a burden for me. It's more, it's work, yeah, I got paid for it by my employer, but it's more like a hobby. it's always a pleasure working with Checkmk, with the code and the team, and that makes it fun to do.
And given, I mean, you all have busy schedules, you, Andreas, all the other people, how do you fit in the support you give to other community members, the things you build on GitHub? How do you fit that in?
The things we release on GitHub are mostly paid by our customers, as we are doing consulting commercially. And some of the extensions are also in-house developed for our own needs. So that's also paid by someone within our company. And posting on the forum is, I keep an eye on the forum, and if I have a lazy minute, I can respond to questions there. And I have lazy minutes sometimes, and I have some weeks where I have no lazy minutes. So I'm more or less active on the forum.
Thanks for that. It's really helpful. It's really good.
I think everyone will agree to that.
And your knowledge is really great, so your answers really help much.
Thank you.
And we try to build a bit of an infrastructure with the forum, with the exchange, with GitHub. What do you like of these changes, and what do you think we should do next to take it further?
If you remember one of the partner days 2 or 3 years ago, where you announced the web-based forum, I was one of the opponents, and I said keep the mailing list, and I'm one of the old guys, and I'm used to the mailing list and never change a running system and such stuff. But I really like the forum right now. I got used to it. It's a good platform. It's a good piece of software what you have chosen there, and I really like how to interact with this website. It's not a web forum like it was 10 or 20 years ago, but it's a modern thing. It's integrated with email, for example, and it's really nice to work with it. The exchange, the Checkmk exchange, also got an overhaul, which I also think positive about. Where, for example, you can keep multiple versions of an extension, and you see the old versions. And recently we had that feature where you have the 2.0 extension separate from the 1.0 or 1.x extensions, and that's also good, I think.
And what would it take to improve further? I mean, you know many open source projects. What could we do to engage people further, to make their lives easier?
That's a tough question. I do not have an answer for that. Maybe you need to promote Checkmk as such a little bit more, and make it more visible into the monitoring community as a whole. I think people who use Checkmk already know the community, the forum, etc. As you have 3,000 members there, but maybe you need to how is it called? Evangelize, maybe.
Evangelize.
On other forums, not to promote and to market your software, but to tell the people that maybe have a look at Checkmk, and here's the forum, and so on. I don't know.
I will talk to the marketing team.
Maybe we should go on some road shows once the on-site conferences are back again.
Yeah, we buy a large big bus and drive around.
Or you just go travel around the world and spread the word about Checkmk.
The sailing boat, yes.
Like Oracle.
Yeah.
First stations are our friends in Australia.
Yeah. Then
The Australian port. Which town was it? Australia, the port. Some port management uses
I don't
Checkmk
know.
for a very long time.
New Zealand and then around the world.
And just for curiosity, is the things that you build with Timeline on GitHub, are they on our exchange?
I tried to upload the MKPs to the exchange in a timely manner, but that lags a little bit.
And is there something we
I
can
have to
improve
confess, I
to
have to confess.
exactly? Is there something we can improve to make that link? I mean, it's community content that no one knows about.
I always discover more repos over the time with new extensions that may be not on the exchange. But I don't think that I have an answer for that. People are building their extensions maybe within their companies, maybe they publish their extensions, but the last step to get onto the exchange is missing somehow. But I don't know, maybe you need to actively search for Checkmk and MKP as search words and try to automate the process here somehow. But yeah, I don't know.
I think we need to integrate directly with GitHub to solve this issue fundamentally. I think it's not that hard because if you look at the MKP packages, the basics of this format, it's a simple file format, and the contents of the MKP, the definitions you have in that file, could also be checked into a Git repository. And with, for example, tagging or branching, you could mark your versions, and then the Exchange could monitor the known repositories, and instead of uploading the MKP packages, you could just link them to some kind of GitHub repository. And if that would be a standard way, we would also solve the problem for the contributors to make it to keep up.
Sounds good.
That would be great.
Maybe Robert, for the REST API, maybe you can talk a little bit about how you actually use it in your day job. And I think you also, or Heinlein, built a Python client around it. Which is at the moment the one to use because we are only starting to building it. Maybe you can talk a little bit about REST API since it's, as I saw in the roadmap Slack channel, one of the highest voted features of the 2.0 version.
Yeah, the REST API allows to automate the configuration of Checkmk in, I think, most aspects as of now. And we are using just a part of it, to be honest. For example, we built a script that sets the parent host of virtual machines to the compute node where the virtual machine is currently running on. And this information is fetched from the status data, the ESX host system service check. Where the compute node name is in the status details, and then the script is able to set the parent attribute of the VM via the API. This was possible with the old Web API or Vato API, and this is still possible with the REST API. And this is something we do. Another thing we are doing is we are fetching information from the hardware-software inventory regarding the software packages that are installed on a Linux system. And we are then setting labels that say in the configuration of Checkmk which software is installed on the host. And then we have a label which says, for example, Postfix is installed or Apache is installed. And then we can have configuration rules that take these labels in the condition and do something, like add the Apache plugin to the agent package in the bakery, or define some parameters for number of tasks, for example, or something.
And given that you've worked with Checkmk for a long time, and now we did the usability switch, how hard was it for you to adapt to the new user interface, and how satisfied or dissatisfied, that's a risky question now, are you actually with 2.0? They say as a lawyer you should never ask a question to which you don't know the answer, so this time I don't know the answer.
To be honest, we haven't switched in our company to 2.0. I haven't prepared my teammates for the new guy. I have to do that maybe after the summer break. And I haven't finished the migration of our extensions to 2.0. There are still some missing, and before we can migrate our instance, our site to 2.0, we have to have all our extensions available for 2.0. But I am in the process of migrating, and I'm actively using 2.0 on development instance, and since the start of this year. And I'm getting used to the
That's good.
There are some points I had to look for because I was heavily used to the old interface, but I would say I like the new one.
It's good.
Especially the quick search options in monitoring and setup. I really like them. I have to say. And I think it's cleaner. It's better organized with the drop-down menus and not the endless button collection in the views and the configuration. So you get a thumbs up from me on the new.
That's good.
Thanks a lot.
So a lot of sweats dripping down here that you answered this the right way. Very good. Okay, thanks a lot, Robert. Thanks for
My pleasure.
being with us.
Thank you.
And then maybe try to get Andreas to connect, if that's still possible. Andreas, if you say a word.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
We can hear you, but we can't see you, but I think it's just a couple of seconds now.
Perfect.
Hi, Andreas.
Hi, Andreas.
In front of the Saturn 5.
Nice rocket. Oh, it's a Saturn 5. Is it the
Yes.
Lego version?
Yes, it's the original Lego version.
Very good. So I think lots of people have to thank you, same as Robert, for actually helping them out in miserable situations in the forum. So thanks a lot for doing that with a lot of your time. Maybe a bit similar order to what I asked Robert. What makes you do this favor to so many people in your busy day?
It started, I think, with the presentation in Nuremberg. It's a conference, it's a monitoring conference, and if I was not the first normal user of the system, I was one of the first public users. The first system I migrated to Checkmk was one day after the conference in Nuremberg.
Okay.
With a small system, the public version what was available, I said, okay, I will check it out and test it, and compared with the old way to configure the Nokia system, it was way better. And that was the start of this long story. And it's also the same as Robert said, it's fun to work with the system, and it's also fun to search for problems in the systems of the customer. And if you do such things, problem hunting, and that's 90% of your daily business, then it's okay that you also say or answers the queries, the questions of the problems of the customers.
So you think
the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you think you like searching for problems, and that's a
Yeah.
reason why you like Checkmk, because there's so many problems to search for.
No, not in Checkmk exactly, but also I think I found one of the bigger bugs in the 2.0 now, what's not solved completely at the moment.
Oops.
And that's a real internal problem, what you don't see on the outside, but you have a problem there. And no, that's the same in the customer systems. I started with learning the problem hunting in the real hardware business with Xerox and Siemens. And if you can now switch to the software business and do the problem search or problem hunting, then it's Checkmk is one of the utilities what you can use very good for such a task. And that's one of the main reasons why I think Checkmk is a very good tool for this work what I do in the daily business.
And how do you fit the support of the community in your day-to-day business? Because for me, it's always, I look at the newsletter every day, and if I see 2 days without you in a row, I'm getting afraid a bit. And so it's very important that you are there. But how do you manage?
Then you must get afraid when I'm on vacation. Also.
Exactly.
It's the most time, it's like Robert said, you have, when you work with the system or work with the troubleshooting on customer systems, then you have time for rebooting and something like that. Or now, with the whole home office situation, it's very easy. In the morning, when I switch on all my machines, I read my news, and in the site, I have opened the forum and so on. And if you say some question where you know that you only have to answer with 2 lines or so, where you don't have to invest much time.
Yeah.
Then you do it on the fly beside your normal work. When you have something bigger where you have to think about the problem or so, then it can also take some time to post the answer, say. But then it's more challenging to find the answer that you say,
Yes.
okay, that's like a challenge. It's a problem what you don't see or don't know. It's a moment, what's new. Then you have to invest a little bit of time to find the answer. Or if you say you know the answer, but you know that you have to write 2 pages of text to describe it, what's the problem? If the problem is not so easy to get, yeah, then it's also a little bit of challenge.
Yeah, but I got you. Sometimes you just immediately know the answer, write 2 lines, and 10 other people were already looking for 2 days for the problem, and are very relieved. This is what's happened to me as a customer. I was at a customer and made my Checkmk system, and 1 year I listened that they had a problem with the backup client crashing, and they already obviously have worked on that for weeks. And I had a strange idea, because I had a similar problem somewhere else, that they use LDAP, and there's a bug that they have to get core dumps in the processes, in the backup process, because they load the LDAP module because of the LDAP authentication. And that was the actual problem. They were so happy. All these experts found finally the problem after really works, weeks of looking for it. And that was great fun for me also. So
that's normally the same here. If I'm on the customer side, all the time when you work on the system, you hear what's discussed and what's problem, and most times you know already what they talk about, as you already heard it somewhere else, and then you can give your information or your tips, and then it's good if you see, okay, that's fixed the problem what they had. It's nothing to do with your monitoring task of work, but I have also some customers where I normally do the monitoring job on the paper, but I'm more there on the customer side to fix or to give some information for all the different problems what existing there inside the whole infrastructure. And that's then the real only problem hunting with the help of the monitoring system also.
And what, in your view, can we make better in terms of a community spirit to involve more people, make your life easier, have a Andreas Döller holiday insurance?
Yeah, the problem is in this system the time what you invested already, or the time what you worked with the system to know all the internal processes and so on. As it's, if I gave someone the Checkmk as a software product that he should get familiar with, then it's a very complex thing. I also know now, or I also have some parts of the system what I used 2 or 3 times in the last 10 years. Then I don't know all the internal problems and so on. As it's so complex, it's complicated to say someone is so involved in the system process and all the things what's done there. I think it's, if we can not split the system, but split the complexes in the system a little bit, and that's like, it's a BI, or the data processing what you get, then the data gathering, and the check engine or something like that. If you can divide it a little bit in smaller parts for information, then it gets easier. That's for instance also something for the documentation. If you can get the documents in a smaller scale. At the moment you have all the documentation. It's very good in the current status, as it's really complex, but it's too much for someone who is new on the system, I think.
Do you know this entry manual that we built to address that? Does that help already, or is that still too big, essentially?
No, that helps already, but what I recommend for many customers who are new with the system are the short videos from Mathias, as that's only 5 to 10 minutes. And that's the length today, what you say,
the attention span.
The attention span today is not longer than 10 minutes. If you get someone who has a better attention span, then it's okay. But the normal attention span is 5 to 10 minutes, and for this the videos are very good. And if there are some more parts what you can handle with such short videos, then you get the normal user more into the system.
And how do you like the different shirts and the videos?
That's okay. I have no problem with this.
That's a very German answer.
Actually, one of our users made something. He made an Andy Warhol style poster with all the thumbnails from the videos. We show it online? Yeah, here. Yeah. It's really.
When I first saw it, I thought about a Panini collector album.
That's okay. And such small chunks of information, I think it's the best way to get a new user to the system. But for the forum, it's more like the administrator stuff, or the programmers and so on. And that's only what you get over the time. If you are involved with the system longer than 1 or 2 years, then you get step by step more into the huge chunk of information that you have there, and that's only if you can motivate someone to work longer than 1 or 2 years with the system.
And with 2.0, we tried to start the journey of simplifying the user experience, especially the ramp up for someone new learning the system. For you, are we on the right track there? Should we go that path further? Has that helped or not yet?
At the moment, I would say yes. That's the goal is achieved there, to get a better experience for the user. I had some users now in the last half year who started from zero with Checkmk, and they accepted the new UI without any problem. I had some old users, very long time users, but I must convince that the new UI is better than the old blue one. They also used the old blue one UI with 1.5 and 1.6. There was nothing else, only the old one. And there I must invest some time to show the better parts of the new UI. And until now I had no one who said who want to stay with the old UI and don't change under any circumstances there.
And is it? Do you think it's easier for a new user to learn Checkmk with a new user interface?
I think yes. Yes, with the small sidebar, it's a little bit clearer what you get, what's part what you can change by yourself, what's configuration, what's the normal data representation, I say so. And that was in the old UI also, but not so clear, not in this way. I have one thing what we spoke before was the search inside the configuration. There's one minus, that it's language dependent.
Okay.
And that's a problem.
Okay.
Yes, I use only normally the English language interface, and I have many users who are using the German one. And I've searched in the German one, I find nothing. Or I find only things what I don't want.
Maybe we could make it in a way that if you choose a non-English language, that the searches in both languages. I've seen that approach in some kind of software, so that the English words always would work, maybe.
If you search, for instance, in the German version for interface, you don't find the interface rules.
Oops.
Yes, you find 2 rules with interfaces, but that's not the 2 rules you want normally.
Oh.
You find something else.
Okay.
And that's the only thing what I have to mention for the search function. All the other, if you work with the English interface, then it's very easy, then it's very good. But that's also then the problem with the knowledge of the rules what you search, the names. If you don't know any name what you search directly, then it's also complicated with the search function. Then it would be a little bit better. What I see at the moment, I would prefer that there were a point data source programs like it before, and under this point you have all the different types of integrations. At the moment you must go to other integrations, or you need to know that it's Windows or Linux, but there are no overall for all the integrations. Normally that's one thing what's for a new user what's complicated. But also for an old user what used the system for the last 5 years. He must think completely different if he searches something.
I think we saw lots of votes on that topic, so we'll do some thinking on our side.
I mean, it's our slogan, think different.
But most of the other things are fully okay, as there's no usage problem. I needed, I say, 1 or 2 hours to get familiar with all the new ways to find something or anything what changed. What I also find really good is that you have only the 4 buttons with the most used functions on the top. That's for 99% of the users, it's enough. All the other buttons are normally not used. And if they are now in the menu, in the top-down menu, then it's okay. Then I don't see why it should be there as a button.
And any last advice for us as a company that you want to give us?
I have not so much time to think about this.
That's good. That's all good.
No, that's also the reason why I have I think until now I have no package in the Exchange from my repository, as most of my MKPs are only consist of check and special agent, and that's all. Nothing else is needed. Normally only the configuration rules, but I think most times the manual page, I don't know any user who is looking at the manual pages. That's
Also an insight.
That's the reason why I invest no time for writing the manual page files, as it's very tedious. Normally, every time there's the same content. This checks something like this. Finish. Now we have the header and the footer, and that's all.
Yeah.
So we just motivated all our developers to write great manual pages, and you just tore it apart. All that motivation is gone.
No, normally it's the other thing. You should, in some way, automate the manual pages, as there's normally the only information inside the manual page. What is good is if you have a configuration rule for the parameters, then it's shown also in the manual page. But this is generated automatically. That's no one write this rule there.
Yeah, I think that the most reason is the most manual pages are copy and paste and thus don't have any information. The original idea was that the manual page, for example, tells you what are the prerequisites. What should I do in order to get the check to run? Maybe you need some tool for installing it, stuff like that, you know.
Written inside the MKB in the info section.
Yeah, but sometimes you need to install some extra tool on the agent in order for getting the information, and that's something for the manual page, for example.
Okay.
So that was the idea, to write actual information in there and not just this check checks ABC. Okay, that's not so interesting. You're right.
Yeah, and but that's the reason why I don't write any manual page normally, and that's then one of the things. If you submit such packages to the exchange, or if you submit it as a mainline check or something like that, you want it as a mainline, then it's okay. You need this, that it's complete, and so on. And then it say, okay, normally I have no time then most time for these things, as that's only time consuming. That's the problem.
Okay. Yeah. I think we have some hurdles to solve on the exchange to increase adoption. Perfect. Thanks so much, Andreas.
Thanks, Andreas, for everything and for your help.
For being here tonight.
For being so active.
Maybe we have one last guest tonight, which is Moritz. Let's see if we can Moritz on the line. Perfect.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
So Moritz, I think you already spent 4 hours today giving workshops on Check programming. And I think this is the topic because you are Mr. Check API. And so I think today we want to learn a bit about how all of that happened. And maybe now we invested more than a year of your time into Check API. Why did we do that?
Well, I think there are several reasons.
And I have one question more. Why is your shirt mirrored? Yeah.
I don't think that's my problem. I feel.
But it's funny. This is a special edition of the T-shirt, which is just available for employees. The mirrored version of the.
Think different.
No, you have it inside out. That's the problem.
Well, that means you're in my shirt and I'm not.
I think you need to move your mic a little bit closer to your mouth so that we hear you better. That's good.
Better like that?
Yeah, that's good.
Right. Well, the main reason is we have a lot of plugins, about 2,000, which constitutes, I think, quite a lot of the 300,000 lines of code. And is it all right? Should I speak more loudly?
Yes.
Yes.
I try. Okay. Well, you have talked about the last 10 years and what has happened since, and you must keep in mind that all of those plugins have been growing and growing within the last 10 years as well. And so they also show kind of a coding history, because when you have few plugins, then you have very different problems to when you have a lot of plugins. Because as soon as you have more and more plugins, they need to look the same so that you can understand them very quickly. Because I cannot have an overview over all of the plugins. I must understand them very, very quickly when I have to fix a bug or something. And you can only achieve this when things are very consistent, and they are not at all. We have very different ways of solving the same problem distributed across all these plugins. And also we have some hacks in place, like the include files, which made sense at the time, but they don't make any sense now. In fact, they're actually getting in the way of leveraging modern tools of software development. So all of these reasons are, I think, quite good reasons
to get started.
Yeah.
Now, what I saw as an outsider was you, Mathias, and sometimes Lars huddling together to think about something. So how did that development of the API actually work?
Well, we did not only think, but also argued and had discussions.
But it was fun. It was really fun.
There
It
was
was
one thing I don't know whether I've actually ever told this, but what came first was that I had to read those plugins. Obviously, I couldn't possibly have read all of them, but I read a lot. And I don't think anybody has
suffered such pain ever in his life.
Systematically, as I have done, because we need to figure out what are the features that we actually need. And when then you have to assess them, is this a feature that is needed often? Because if I need it often, it must be very easy to implement. If it's a very rare feature, we can afford to make it, say, a bit more complicated because most likely users will not need it. And if we have a feature that is only used by 2 plugins of 2,000, then chances are that we don't need it at all. And so that was the very first step to get an idea of what we need, what the API needs to be able to do. And that's what I did before we even started talking.
Yes.
And the second step was that I, let's say, wrote a white paper without any coding, just gathering ideas and developing the concept. And that's when we started talking quite regularly and yeah, discussing different options. And well, then it kind of drifted into the implementation. There was really a hard cut where we said, now the white paper is done and we'll build it exactly as it says. But I started more and more developing stuff, and yeah, at the end the white paper was no longer relevant because we had the API in place.
Was that more process? You have 2 kinds of different conceptual processes. One where we do phase A, and then we do phase B, and then we do phase C, and the other is more we throw everything in the air, and then we struggle around with it, and something falls down, and then we pick these pieces up and structure them. How hard was the creative piece?
I'd say it was a mixture. I think we started very theoretically, and obviously, at the end, it was quite concrete because once you build it and it runs, it's as concrete as it gets. And I think there was, yes, was a slow change from those 2 ideas.
And where are we now in the process? So we've developed or implemented a lot of that API. Part is still on your radar. Tell us a little bit, what is there, what is about to come, and what is about to come next?
Well, I think we have the most important things are all in place, and there's the very next thing I want to do is to improve the situation on clusters, because that's still kind of tedious, and there's a lot of manual programming to be done if you want a service to support a cluster setup. And my plan is to get to at least have the most common setups, let's say, pre-configured, so that you only have to choose them by a Vato rule. And this is the very next step I want to do. And then there are other things that I think should be done, as I think the Vato rules themselves could be a little bit more straightforward and easy to implement. And there's one other type of plugin that we don't even have a name for. Recently, we have started to call it argument thingies, in lack of a better word. Those are the files that are in the checks directory that are in charge of transforming the configured parameters into the command line call for special agents and active checks. And those are still very much in the old-fashioned way, and I think we really should do this next, and it shouldn't be that difficult because we now have a clear idea of how it's supposed to work, and obviously it should be as similar as possible to the Check API, and I would love to do that next. And one more thing I want to mention is that what I'm really looking forward to is to actually use the new Check API, because it becomes more and more clear that it really has the power to change how we think about Check plugins. And this is a great opportunity. I think we must stop emphasizing that we have this many plugins and that's a good thing, because it shouldn't be. Because if we have 10 plugins that create some kind of service that monitors a fan of some kind, that's too much.
Sorry, I can't do that. We need to grow the
have
number of plugins every year.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The next bar is 10,000. The next level, 10,000 plugins.
We had a great example in the workshop this morning where we just realized that somebody right now has 15 plugins, and once he goes to the new API, it will be 8. Because now he needs 3 by 5 plugins, and once we separate it into sections and checks, then we will need only 3 sections, 5 plugins.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because we have the problems separated. And this also will ensure that we have consistent output, consistent feature set of all of those services. The rule set will be the same. Everything will be more consistent in appearance, and we will get more features more quickly. And I think that's really something we can look forward to.
Also, I want to say something. From all the workshops I did when we designed the 2.0, and it's been quite a lot of workshops, this, with you, it was the most fun, because we had lively discussions about everything, but at the end we always thought, yes, that's the best solution. We all three, Lars was also with us most of the times, and it's as always when I'm part of a workshop, it's a hard and lively discussion.
But that partially
it's quite demanding.
That partially remembered me about the old days.
The old days,
where we did this more often, and it's mostly hard to have these discussions. But they always have a good outcome, so they are good discussions.
We were a perfect team, I was completely happy with the outcome. At the end, we all had a common understanding that it's really a good idea how to do it. It's with the user interface, it's much more harder because it's more about taste, or maybe because of other reasons. But we three, especially with you, it was really fun to work with, and I'm really glad that we have such a great API now. It's really a very good improvement. It's fun using it. It's just the only thing, this import stuff, I don't like still, but
that's a personal opinion.
But at least I got as the lawyer of the users, as opposed to the developers of Tribe 29, I got through the point that you can go with one generic import if you like for unofficial plugins.
Maybe a few questions. Maybe a few questions around helping users, Moritz. What is there to help users build their own plugins today, and what are we planning to expand on if we need so?
Well, we have a handbook which is much better than the years before, and I think this is really a good place to start. And if you need a bit more technical information, you can look into the Sphinx documentation that is within the site. You mentioned it already earlier, where you have more technical information, but it's generated automatically, so it's guaranteed to be correct. And you have small
and also guaranteed to be boring. Yeah, but you are right. It makes sense.
Not exciting, but it's correct, and so that's also a place to go. And I think a very important point is that, unlike earlier, you can now just try to build a plugin and try to reload the core, and then you will get error messages. If you don't get any error messages when you load the plugins, chances are that your plugin is working correctly, because we try to detect anything that is inconsistent or wrong as early as possible. And now it's way more early than before. And also you can, I mentioned it, you can now use the modern development environments that also can tell you a lot of errors before you even run your code. And I think this makes it much easier to develop plugins.
And since, I mean, you've built it, you've migrated a lot of the plugins, you've built the engines to actually transform them, what's the experience, how, if I'm a user and I have my custom plugins, how much actually do I need to touch them? How often, statistically, from the experience that we've had over the last weeks and months?
Well, it depends on whether you wanted to change them to the new API or you just want to continue the old plugins as they are. But since you have to check them anyway, because we've moved from Python 2 to Python 3 as discussed, then I think it's probably the easiest thing to just migrate them because you're looking at them anyway. If you choose to not migrate them, then you'd have to change little to nothing. And if you choose to migrate them, it's let's say it's more, most of the times it's formal stuff that you can do very automatically. Maybe you can get an intern to do it. It's really not that hard. The more sophisticated your plugin is, obviously, the more complicated it may get. In particular, if you're having a rule set to configure the discovery, for instance, that's a thing that has changed quite a lot. I think it's way better now and way easier, but nevertheless, you have to know how to transform it to this new way.
But this time we have a much better documentation. The old handbook was quite outdated, so the new one is not yet complete, but I think it's
then maybe if you're the maintainer of your plugin, but you may not be forever. So it's probably a good idea to migrate as fast as possible, because it will also make it easier for your colleagues, for instance, to read the code.
There's a question here from watching from home, not sure who can answer. Will there be a continuous telemetry included in the agents?
A what?
That's probably a future roadmap discussion question.
Continuous
telemetry,
like pushing metrics continuously from the agent to Checkmk.
We have that, don't we?
Yeah, we partially have something like that with the real-time checks. Yeah, but it's only working for very specific kind of checks, and it's a rarely used feature.
Yeah, but the architecture as such can do it, and if you want to extend it by your own information, you can have update rates up to once a second, don't you?
Yeah, we've realized this in the real-time checks years ago, but I think if you want to solve that in a generic way, which can be widely used with maybe also not only metrics, but larger agent sections, you need to choose a slightly different approach of doing this. And maybe the push agent we are currently planning is one step further in that direction. Yeah. Because once you have the server for receiving the agent data which are pushed, and we already designed this server to be able to handle a huge traffic, a huge load, to be able to handle the load of larger systems. Mm-hmm. We may also be able to handle partial information,
micro updates,
single sections or something like that. I can imagine this to be built into that structure.
Okay, perfect. Moritz, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Moritz.
We let you
My
go.
pleasure.
Thanks for the check RP. Good. I think timing-wise, we are nearing the soccer game of the evening.
Who cares? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm really curious what's going on with Germany versus France.
Exactly.
This time.
Any more topics you want to start? Any more questions to have? That's, I think, you got a new beer, or you still have a beer.
Yeah, I still have it. I haven't drunk much.
That's the time to ask. Otherwise, I think we'll slowly migrate to the soccer evening.
So we still have a whole new day tomorrow. We have a workshop in the morning if you have booked one. Then we have the tech session at 2 p.m. German time, this time with Simon Megle about Robot MK and Jens Dunkelberg. And at 4 p.m., also available on Free TV, we are sending the second part of the official part of the conference, all the presentations. Tomorrow we have, I think, 5 presentations, quite a lot. So I hope we see you tomorrow and have a nice evening.